I made something my first priority and it made other people really uncomfortable. And it wasn't because it was wrong or anything, but more so because it's not the way we're taught to move. And it made me realize that many of us don't even know what real rest looks like. And before you click off, yes, I'm going to be talking about rest in this video, but more so, I want to talk about the difference between what rest really is and what we actually think we're doing, and the reason why rest can feel so uncomfortable for many of us, especially if you're driven, ambitious, responsible, why it can feel uncomfortable to us, even when we know we need it, and especially when we're not used to getting it. So, during my time in my corporate leadership career, I've shared in many videos over this 100-day journey that I thought I was really resting. I would take my PTO, I would take random days. I talked about it in a recent video how I took a whole week of PTO off just to like do nothing, not to take a vacation, just to kind of lounge around the house because I felt like I needed rest. But even during that time, girl, I really wasn't resting. Like my body was not in motion, but my mind was still going, going, going. And it made me realize at the time, well, I would say, again, as I'm doing all of this reflection to talk about these things, it made me want to talk about the difference between rest and escape, because oftentimes they can look very similar. But that's what I want to talk about, because sometimes we think that we may be resting, but what we're really doing is escaping. And a few months ago, I was invited to guest post or guest write on a popular blog, Good Mornings with Curly Nikki. If you know her, she has a podcast. She does a lot of Christian, like spiritual content. And the guest post that I wrote about was this topic, the difference between rest and escape. And I think it's a very important topic to speak about because, for example, you have a corporate professional, like yourself, whatever industry you may be in. Woman A and woman B, both have the same career, the same jobs. They're not raising children. So after work, woman A, she comes home, drops her bag on the floor, turns on YouTube, have that playing in the background while she pulls up her app to order Uber Eats, DoorDash, something. She got something coming on the way. She has YouTube playing in the background, and she just, crashes on the couch and starts scrolling on TikTok. So her body is not in motion. She's lounging on the couch, but her mind is still going. She's scrolling TikTok. She got YouTube playing in the background. Where woman B, again, same job, same career. She comes home. She goes into her bedroom. She puts on something a little bit more comfortable, some cozy loungewear. She opens up her window because it's a nice spring day to let the evening breeze comes in. She puts on some slow jazz music or some lo-fi, makes her a warm cup of tea, and she just sits by the window for a moment to just relax, listen to the slow music, allow the breeze to come over her face, and really just take a moment to pause. So when I describe those two types of scenarios, can you see the difference? Woman A, she's still stimulated. She might still have some tension in her body. And mentally, girl, she's still rolling. She's still on. Where woman B, she's moving a little bit more slower. She's more present. She is sitting in a space where she can actually come back to herself, feel herself, reconnect with herself. So one woman is escaping and one woman is actually resting. And again, I've done it. I've escaped. Again, I didn't know that it was that before, but when I took that week off, because that's just so fresh on my mind in my corporate leadership career. When I took that week off, girl, thinking I was just gonna like do nothing, lounge around the house, and I did all the things. I think one day I went for a massage, just lounging around the house in my pajamas, watching TV. But when I went back to work that following Monday, girl, I was still feeling tired because I really wasn't rested. I really wasn't resting in the way that my body actually needed. I was performing things that looked like rest, but wasn't really actually resting. And again, I feel like there's a difference for sure between resting and escaping, but oftentimes they can look very similar when we're not used to resting in a way that truly nourishes our body. We're not practicing the seven types of rest because everything doesn't just go back to physical rest. There's mental rest, emotional rest, of course, the physical rest, spiritual rest, sensory rest, social rest, creative rest. And at some point, our lives, our bodies require us to tap into each of those types of rest. And the real reason that this can be hard is because true rest requires you to sit with yourself. And many times, a lot of us aren't used to just sitting with ourselves, just being with ourselves, and choosing to escape versus truly sitting with yourself can often be the easier option. To choose the distraction, the scrolling on the TikTok, the binge watching all of the TV shows versus truly sitting with yourself, connecting with yourself, and truly finding out what you need to fully feel rested. It's easier to just not do that. But if you keep continuing to go down the same patterns, choosing the same things, running yourself ragged, performing what you think rest may be, it just continues to compound and your body will start to give you signs that something has got to give. That definitely was my experience. And when I started choosing real rest, it didn't just, it wasn't, when I started choosing, and again, that's why my sabbatical was so transformative for me because I learned so much about myself. It was the best time. I did so much growth and development and learning myself again. But when I first started choosing rest and finding out what it meant for me and what truly gave me the type of relief and reset that I needed, girl, it made other people very uncomfortable too. It made it made people uncomfortable when I chose rest, when I chose not to participate in certain things, when I chose not to take on certain work, when I chose to log off when it's time to log off. It makes other people feel uncomfortable because it doesn't look like you're being productive. It doesn't look like you're being enough. And most people are operating in that space. But for me and my lived experience, being, ambitious, easeful ambition, because I'm no longer in a place where I'm going to be working myself to the bone. Of course, there's still a lot of goals that I have, a lot of things that I want to accomplish, a lot of things that I'm actively building and working towards. And I have a 9 to 5. I'm building a business, but girl, I'm not even going to work myself to the bone in my own business. Like, I am building a life that is sustainable because I've tried the other way and it didn't work for me. I burnt out. I was 60 pounds overweight. I was on 2 types of anxiety medication just to go to work. And choosing this for myself was life changing. But at the same time, it makes other people so uncomfortable. It really does, that I'm choosing rest. One time, one of my bosses in the past, she told me, she was like, Erica, you are great. I never have to worry about you. You do, excellent work. You're a strategic thinker, all of the things. She goes, but you really challenge me because you really have, the word she used was, you really have strong boundaries. And I was just, girl, like, I think she was trying to say it. I don't want to assume how she was trying to say it, but what I took it as is like, okay, girl, but like you just said, all of the things you led with, like, I do my job very well, but it's because that I am rested and I take care of myself. Because if I'm trying to burn myself at both ends, I'm not going to be able to do good work. And I was just basically told her, like, well, girl, if I don't take care of myself, I can't do good work. But it makes people so uncomfortable. And being that I've been living this way for 4 years now, what I think it is that oftentimes other people around you might not have the courage or the bravery, again, to choose themselves in that way for whatever their reasons may be. So them seeing you show up, or you seeing me show up in my full self, doing good work and choosing rest, they just, don't know what to make of that. And it's a very interesting thing, but there is a difference between, resting, truly resting and finding what your body needs, and escaping, doing the things that appear to be rest, but they're really not giving you any relief. Your mind is still running. You're still probably holding some tension somewhere in your body, but it's just really getting clear on what you need to really give yourself that relief that you need. And if you've been telling yourself, that you need to rest, but you're still feeling maybe a little bit of disconnection, a little bit tense, you feel that things are off. That's the word that I used when I was going through this, because I just didn't know what else to say. Like, I didn't have the language for it. You might not just need more time. You might just need a different type of rest. Again, there are 7 different types of rest, and exploring them and seeing what your body is calling for. Listen, your body is always going to tell you, it's giving you signs on what it actually needs. But I know that it can be difficult to really sit with yourself to find out what you need, and then to take small steps to actually move towards that. And again, this isn't about doing everything perfectly or finding the perfect match, the perfect strategy, the perfect solution. It's just starting with choosing differently, choosing what you need, choosing what gives you some relief. And I've said this in other videos, but when I started prioritizing rest in my life, like holistically, prioritizing my health and my wellness, and if that includes rest, like, everything else in my life elevated. It got better, because for me, again, I feel like if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't do good work. I can't do good work in my 9 to 5, and I can't do good work in building a business. And I'm doing both and still prioritizing rest. And, I made this sweatshirt during the holidays, well, after the holidays, created then rested from Genesis 2:2, because again, I feel like even God rested. It was part of the original routine. God created the sun, the moon, the stars, all of the things. And then he rested. So I created this sweatshirt as a way, as like a constant reminder. And I've worn it in other videos, and people have asked me about this sweater that I just created for myself. I created the design, and then one of my friends has one of those Cricut machines that you can cut out the design and iron it on. So a few people asked me about this sweatshirt, and I was like, well, I don't have, I just made it for myself. But after more people started asking me, so I've gone ahead and put this sweatshirt on my shop where I have my other merch. So if it's something that you're interested in, I've linked it down in the description box. But I just wanted to have this conversation today around rest and escape, because they look very similar, but they are not the same. Rest gives you something back, gives you some relief. When escape requires nothing from you, it leaves you still tired, still disconnected, and finding out which one you're actually practicing, because awareness is always the first step. And then just really getting clear on what type of rest you need, because it's a must. You're a human. Rest is a human need. Again, even God rested. So rest is a big part of doing the good work that I know that you want to do. If you've missed any of the other conversations I'm having on this 100-day journey here on YouTube, that's starting to wrap up. We're in the 80s right now. I think today is day, 82. And I've linked the playlist down in the description box. I'm Erica Prevail, and I share daily conversations helping ambitious women rework their relationship with ambition, capacity, rest, and creativity. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.